I wonder how modern battles are evolving. Yeah, no, that's not a UFO. That's flame-throwing drones that have thermite munitions on them. Holy frickin' cow, just when you thought things couldn't get crazier, we're here. At the point where we're very close to a Terminator-like kind of extinction as robotics, drones, and soon, if not already, artificial intelligence become more and more of a threat against our existence as humanity. All of this as the situation in Ukraine is absolutely intensifying, not just with these latest munitions, but with the larger geopolitical picture and perspective of everything that's unfolding right now. That is absolutely serious and has some larger ramifications that could even signal the potential extinction of mankind. Is it that serious? Yeah, it actually is. It kind of is. As, of course, our politicians are acting more and more sociopathic and unconsiderate of the larger mess that they've gotten us into, that whoever becomes the next president of the United States will have a very difficult time unwinding, and we will explain why, especially with all the latest kind of geopolitical situations that are unfolding right now that complicate this ever so embattled, entrenched, far-gone misadventure that we are all on and financing with our tax dollars. This as just a few weeks ago, we got declassified government documents about the United States preparing for a simultaneous nuclear war with China, Russia, North Korea. We could add Iran to that list ever since the latest developments that are unfolding right now in the Middle East. As the president of Russia now is warning about new Armageddon threats, as the Russian government has now officially lowered its requirements needed to justify a nuclear weapon launch. This as the United States has been absolutely fully supporting the Ukrainians in the larger proxy war that they are waging, not just on Russia, not just on its territory, but its capital, with very severe, important red lines just being absolutely obliterated, just like the lives of young Slavic men in these countries that are literally sent to be the larger victims of little robots that ruthlessly continue to take their lives even when they're trying to surrender and give up. As this latest announcement is something to really consider, something to really have in hindsight here, as Joe Biden, the president of the United States, is experiencing his 16th day on vacation. This as the Russians are literally creating the battle plans and larger excuse for the larger potential nuclear escalation that they've been threatening for so long. Now, will it actually happen? Well, I think there's multiple scenarios that could potentially unfold here, as a lot of people do believe that there's going to be a larger kind of mutual assured escalation here that will destroy all of Earth, which again is a possibility. Is that a likelihood here? Well, our weaponry, as you saw from the beginning of this video, has had a lot of different particular advancements to it. And there's also low-yield nuclear weapons. There's also just the threat of testing nuclear weapons, specifically potentially also in the Baltic or potentially even the Black Sea here. There's also the potential of larger false flag opportunities for a very desperate country that is losing a significant portion of its manpower to prolong this conflict, which there are severe interests that absolutely want it to, of course, continue. This is, of course, we also have other countries involved here like Iran, China, and other countries also in Africa that also geopolitically are having a larger kind of natural resource battle between Western nations, in which countries like France literally lose very important natural resources to that they are dependent on to keep their nuclear power grid afloat. This conflict is far more encompassing than just what we're seeing unfolding now in Ukraine, as the theater of war has also expanded to Russian territory, which was a major escalation which severely angered the Russians here, as a lot of that fighting has actually subsided and more fighting has now actually unfolded in the Donbass region, where specifically the battles have not only intensified, but the Russians have been making some very significant progress that, of course, we're not really hearing about in the Western press, specifically when it comes to gaining territory and land there. As some foreign news outlets are talking about how Russia could occupy all of the Donbass region in the spring of 2025, very optimistic points of view, as even the Kiev Independent is talking about the silent killer, as Russian boots are grinding a Donbass advance with, quote, alleged use of chemical weapons. Reuters even admitted, saying that Russia is advancing fast by, quote, kilometers in eastern Ukraine, as the meat grinder conflict has usually predominantly been at a stalemate, especially in this part of the country, as the Washington Post even had to admit that Ukraine's gamble in Russia has yet to slow Moscow's eastern assault that is still continuing and making very slow progress, but progress indeed, that is also threatening to cut off the major supply lines for this entire conflict, as a lot of geopolitical experts believe that this incursion into Russia was predominantly done to force a lot of these forces, a lot of these troops to move north of Ukraine in order to divert them from the progress that they've been making, as it looks like that strategy has not worked, mainly because of the overwhelming amount of manpower that the Russians have over the Ukrainians, as the Ukrainians are also using foreign mercenaries, they're using foreign troops, they're using a lot of their young men that have lost their lives here significantly, to a grand proportion of numbers that we are still yet to actually find out about, as many people believe that the estimates are far bigger than, of course, what we expected them to be for both sides of this kind of conflict here. As even an Azov brigade officer came out and said that the situation in the Donbass is spiraling out of control. The Economist had a very interesting article that reads, even as it humiliates Russia, Ukraine line is crumbling in the Donbass region. As of course, fighting in the Donbass region has been going on since 2014, as there were pro-Russian separatists inside of Ukraine that wanted more to align with the former government, not with the new overthrown government with the State Department's stamp of approval. This created small skirmishes, small conflicts, and of course eventually led to entire trenches being built around the Donbass region that have continued to stay pretty permanent until these latest events, where the Russians are throwing, again, lots of their artillery, lots of their manpower into this region, and these trenches have actually changed for the first time in a very long time. Again, I can't underscore the significance here, since this is a bad sign for the Ukrainians. As of course, they have the latest and greatest NATO technology, but they simply just don't have the manpower. They don't have the boots on the ground. They don't have the number of individuals that the Russians overwhelmingly have. The Russians also have a lot of natural resources and a kind of new war economy that has been a lot more affordable and, in some people's opinions, efficient than the over-bloated, no-bid contract Western military-industrial complex that a lot of people believe is bloated and taken advantage of the American taxpayer. As, of course, we hear stories after stories about these absolute ridiculous expenses, as it's fair to say that we are paying top dollar, billions of dollars actually, for this entire endeavor that is simply just destroying the lives of Slavic men. Slavic men that already are facing a significant decline in their population, since their reproduction levels are going down dramatically, not as dramatically as other parts of Europe, but still significantly compared to the rest of the developing world, as it's not just a lack of manpower that is troubling the Ukrainians, but also the larger kind of situation unfolding right now in the Middle East, as there are major protests happening right now inside of Jerusalem, specifically calling for a ceasefire, which, according to all the U.S. American officials, probably won't happen, as Joe Biden today is claiming that the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, is, quote, not doing enough to secure the deal with the opposing forces he's currently engaged in inside of Gaza. As, of course, America's focus has kind of shifted away, predominantly because of this new conflict in the Middle East that is, that much more fresher, that much more younger for the American empire, and that which they, of course, they're more interested in than, of course, the old, haggard conflict that they are still engaged in inside of Ukraine. Let's just be honest here. The U.S. has a list of priorities, and it's fair to say that with what happened in the Middle East, the Ukraine priority just, of course, shifted downwards significantly, as the United States is also spending an overwhelming amount of money and resources, specifically helping out this one country in the Middle East, which threatens the support of what's happening inside of Ukraine. Another thing to look at are local elections inside of Europe that could shift the larger kind of geopolitical perspective of NATO, as it does look like more right-wing populist kind of governments are slowly gaining more ground and significance inside of places like Germany, that is one of the biggest overwhelming supporters of this current proxy conflict, as it looks like potentially Germany could have the first ever right-wing government since 1945. As of course, this will make a major impact to the larger priorities of a lot of these countries that previously were all in on this conflict, that of course now are kind of moving away from it and understanding that, financing proxy conflicts against nuclear powers isn't the smartest of decisions. Another key issue to look at is the larger kind of formation of the BRICS nations that challenge Western hegemony, specifically the American petrodollar, as Turkey just formally requested to join BRICS, as of course Turkey is also a NATO ally country. As economies like Russia and China are becoming more aligned together in a very kind of troubling way for the American empire, as this conflict isn't just unfolding in proxy states like Ukraine, but also many other places around the world. As I previously mentioned, Africa and the larger kind of resource war that's happening there as well. As of course, the financial conflicts that are happening here are also very vast, very complicated, and very important to kind of look at and highlight here. As of course, in the making of this video, the United States literally just stole a plane from the Venezuelan government that they accuse of skirting sanctions. Sanctions are another form of economic war, as of course the United States is involved in specifically trying to take down the ruble. It's fair to say that Russia, especially with its new alliances that they have strengthened with India, Iran, and China, and other countries around the world, are significantly looking at the dollar and saying, yeah, that's just not something we're going to be using here. That's just not something that we want to participate in. And the BRICS nations coming together and thinking of alternatives, which we know there's rumblings of, is a significant challenge to, of course, American dominance and supremacy. As, of course, the U.S. empire is as powerful as it is, not only because of all the military bases we have everywhere, but because of the use of the dollar. Another thing that the Ukrainians should be looking at is the U.S. national debt. That also is $35 trillion. It is significant. It is real. There are a lot of troubling things happening in American real estate, troubling things happening in the credit markets, troubling things happening in, of course, the larger financial sectors in this country that are being financed by a proxy, quasi-private, sort of, not really, Federal Reserve banking system that preys on predatory systems that a few globalists who have no allegiance to America are preying off of and taking full advantage of. As, of course, our banking system is acting like a parasite on the lower and middle class of this country, as they are prioritizing internationalists that don't give a damn about it, that have no care or consideration about America, its interest, its sovereignty, as, of course, the people that are benefited through the larger financial crimes that are being exposed right now that are happening against you are individuals that, of course, will gladly go over to China, will gladly participate with their larger kind of financial institutions if it benefits them. And if you're Ukraine, you're kind of looking at, oh crap, look at the situation in the Middle East. Look at the situation unfolding with NATO being significantly questioned here by Turkey trying to be in the BRICS nations. You look at the larger questions about the U.S. dollar that we're depending on specifically to buy all of these weapons that we're going to have to pay back money on. You look at the larger resource war that the Western world is losing to countries like Russia and China to inside of continents like Africa in. And how long can you prolong this? Well, as I've said from the beginning of this conflict could last for a very long time. As CNN was telling you, it's going to end within a matter of a few days, which of course they were absolutely wrong about. But how long could this charade, could this conflict continue? It's fair to say that there's signs and warnings that it could end at any moment, at any time. And I think the Ukrainians understand that, and I think that's why they're going for broke and creating these larger escalations. But furthermore, we have to understand that these larger escalations, especially the incursions to Russia, especially the bombing of Moscow, create kind of a larger existential threat, not just to the American empire, but also to, of course, the Russian empire that sees this as a direct assault against it and therefore would retaliate in very severe ways. And that's exactly what they're kind of threatening here, as the Ukrainians just carried out one of their biggest ever drone attacks on Russia inside of Russian territory, specifically going after their infrastructure, going after their power plants, going after their factories, their refineries. As of course, the Russians are responding to this with their own strikes, going after Ukrainian infrastructure, going after their power grid. And it's just kind of a tit-for-tat kind of larger escalation here that is becoming way out of control and totally ridiculous. As now the Ukrainian foreign minister is literally urging its Western NATO allies for permission to use long-range strikes into Russia, as it already has been carrying out those larger attacks and is asking to, of course, only escalate them from here. As again, very quickly, at any moment, at any time, it could even be an accident. It could even be an error based off a soldier. And we could be inside of an absolutely unattainable, unwinnable, horrible situation where everyone loses. And that's what's at stake here. And that's what sociopathic politicians have placed us in and are putting us closer to more than ever. My response to those individuals is, what are you doing? This is stupid. This is dumb. War doesn't benefit any local population that, of course, is involved in it. It benefits the few people financing it, the people bankrolling it, the people profiting off of it. But other than that, there's nothing we get here. There's nothing we win here. There's just utter freaking destruction, as the Western world is already dealing with very significant geopolitical conundrums and financial issues that, of course, are something severely important to pay attention to right now, because if we don't, they will lead to larger problems. Those larger problems, there's no going back from, as the situation there is something that we need to pay attention to more than ever. As the United States is coming out and talking about the probable launch sites for a new Russian nuclear-powered missile, as Russia just announced that it has changed its nuclear doctrine because of the United States government involvement here with its proxy conflict inside of Ukraine, as a Russian spokesperson even came out and suggested that they prefer Moscow over Donald Trump as the next leader of the United States that they would prefer to deal with. Is that the case here? Is this some kind of propaganda meant to confuse individuals, as the Russians are even coming out and saying, yeah, I don't think Trump could end this conflict in 24 hours like he is promising, and just how entangled it is, just how severe it is, and just how important it is. I kind of agree with those sentiments, as of course, rolling back everything that's unfolding right now and how it's escalating and how it's growing and how it's expanding is going to be an absolutely incredibly difficult job in order to do. Now, can any person do that, even if they want to do it? What do you think? Let me know in the comment section down below, as of course we appreciate your direct support in this independent media organization, as we want to remind you about ways that you could, of course, get involved, check us out, support us, but also at the same time support yourself with things like our supplements that you could get exclusively on wearechange.shop that are absolutely incredible, that are absolutely awesome, that you should absolutely check out. One of the things that I've been taking recently is, of course, this fish oil with EPA, DHA, and overall it has been something that, in my opinion, has helped me out significantly. I've been hyper paranoid about my health for the last few years. As you could see, I'm less fat, I have less chins. I do my blood work and I analyze everything, which you should do as well. You should always talk to a medical professional before taking anything into your body. But I usually kind of have cycles where I am on supplements. Sometimes I'm not on supplements, and I do test myself out and I see how I feel. I check how my sleep is. I check how my overall health is through different kind of health monitors. And I had a lot of progress, especially with things like essential fatty, which you can get exclusively on wearechange.shop. It is great for overall health, brain function, heart health, and there's some really interesting studies, especially if you're doing significant heavy weight training, that has highlighted how fish oils could help people dramatically in this specific realm to get all the significant gains from it, with the addition of fish oils that, of course, I have started to take that I like, and I have personally recorded some advantages too. especially with all that heavy weightlifting that I've been significantly doing. Again, will that happen with you? I don't know. Depends on your body, depends on your needs. Do your own homework, do your own research on wearechange.shop. On every product we have listed here, we have a video that you could play in the top right-hand corner to learn about what you will be taking inside of your own body and if it is right for you. But this is something that I really like, mainly because a lot of fish oils are kind of rancid. A lot of fish oils are filled with heavy metals. Ours aren't, because we rely on small fish that, of course, are less likely to have heavy metals in it. We've tested it for also heavy metals. There's no heavy metals in it. We really like this batch. We really appreciate it. I think you will too. As, of course, a lot of people have a fatty acid imbalance, especially with all the seed oils out there. And some people believe that this is a way to actually balance that out. As, of course, seed oils are almost impossible to avoid now. You can do it, but it's just almost impossible sometimes. Again, do your tests. Make sure you are healthy. As, of course, the situation that we're dealing with is going to be significant. It's going to probably be prolonged for a very long time. And there's going to be some larger ramifications for it that, in my opinion, you have to be in tip-top shape for and be ready for. As, of course, it's fair to say the road ahead is going to be very bumpy, and you need to be as strong as you can for it. That's why we started wearechange.shop. Check it out. We're going to return to you in a few hours from now, as, of course, we are also going to be doing a live podcast here on this YouTube channel with two awesome guests. As, of course, we bring in a lot of amazing people in studio, and we have 2-hour-long amazing conversations that are absolutely incredible and fun to be a part of. As, of course, those conversations wouldn't happen if it wasn't for your direct and support. I love you guys. Stay tuned for more here on youtube.com/wearechange.